We love the power and grace of athletes, artists, CEOs, and high achievers with their zest and grit. But have you ever wondered how they cut through all the distractions, harness their energy, and get into flow to achieve their goals? And what do they do with the money that comes their way? I'm Darren Wright, author of Peak Financial Fitness. Join me on a fascinating journey to gain a peek into the intersection of high-performing people and everyday financial life. There will be highs and lows and inspiring stories for you to achieve your goals.
Welcome to Finding Financial Flow. We're sitting here with my friend Eric Ballester, who is a retired U.S. Air Force combat controller and board member for Shields and Stripes. Eric is here to inform and inspire us about his journey with Legacy Expeditions and raise money for Folds of Honor and delve into their upcoming incredible adventure of rowing with 5 comrades across the daunting Drake Passage, a treacherous 600-mile journey from South America to Antarctica. And before we get into it, I want you to listen to this.
It's known as the most dangerous stretch of sea in the world. Over 20,000 sailors and 800 ships have been lost at sea in the Drake's Passage between South America and Antarctica. Why would anyone in their right mind attempt to cross Drake's Passage in an unpowered rowboat? And what type of man would try to do it in less than 12 days? Why tempt that fate?
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Join us and follow the Drake's Fury expedition as a group of former U.S. Special Operations soldiers embark on a 22-month journey across 3 oceanic rows, culminating in an attempt to conquer Drake's Passage and break the world record in honor of our fallen U.S. service members. We need your continued support to raise $7 million for Folds of Honor, which provides educational sponsorships for military and first responder families. Follow us at legacyexpeditions.net and foldsofhonor.org. Never forget, forever honor.
Awesome. I got chicken skin.
That's it. We're done. That's the end of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So that is just incredible. So what led you to this point to do this type of amazing adventure?
Still trying to figure that out. When people find out what I'm doing, they're like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this? But there's a bunch of things that drive me towards doing interesting things or doing hard things. It's part of my pedigree. It's part of the community that I came from also. So it's like almost a no-brainer when my buddy presents this idea to me. He's like, what are you doing? What do you got going on next year? It's like, whatever you're about to say, it's probably going to be a yes. And there's like this trust that I have that's extended to people that come from, the military in general. There's almost like a default trust there, automatic. And then once you come from the special operations community, it's an even deeper trust in this camaraderie. So chances are, if he's presenting an idea to me and he's saying, listen, I'm doing something, you want in, I'm probably going to say yes because we have similar backgrounds and similar pedigrees. But there is something specific to me where I know that there's growth behind challenge, and it doesn't have to be like a physical challenge or emotional or psychological or whatever. I know that there's growth behind challenge. So the more ridiculous it sounds, I'm going to tend to look at it as a growth opportunity. So yeah, in short, once I found out that it was with a group of guys like this, that right there makes it a win in my book, because I'm going to get a chance to share time with some people that I love. I love being around people like this. So shared adversity is one of the reasons, but there's a couple more reasons too that we could dig into. I think your audience is very aware of his purpose, like being behind some cause that has true purpose and alignment with what your goals are. Then it's unquestionable when things pop up in your life, when when an opportunity pops up, if you've done the work and you've looked at your goals and you know what your purpose is, then it's too easy to filter out the things that are good ideas but don't really align, or it's not going anywhere, or the thing that has purposeful alignment. It's going to be hard, but it's almost like unquestionable. Yeah, this has alignment. This is a good use of my time.
So when you talked about the growth aspect of it and that green and growing mindset, you're either growing or dying,
Yeah.
What is it about that? Because when we were talking previously about when you were deployed and you served 20 years in the military, special forces, and the other people that are rowing with you are all special forces as well from different branches. You were in the U.S. Air Force, special operators. But you talk about growth. What is it about that growth mindset that you think that you have and that other people that you know have that has caused you to be a leader and to take on these extreme challenges? What is it about that growth mindset?
I think the fact that Special Operations, the group of five other guys that are Marine Corps, Army, Navy, and I'm representing the Air Force, the Special Operations community does a great job of attracting, selecting, and assessing people for attributes. So they do a really good job of saying, if you join the military, that already tends to associate with somebody that has service, that the idea of service or the idea of being part of a bigger cause or benevolence or sacrifice. That's a general attribute associated with somebody. I'm making general statements, but that's a general attribute for anybody who joins the military. Well, within the Special Operations community, the unique thing about that is you have to raise your hand again. So when you raise your hand again, now you're starting to filter out the people's attributes. And the Special Operations community has done a good job of targeting key attributes for people that would thrive in a Special Operations environment, which can span, the craziest environments. So the attribute of continuous growth or adaptation or resilience, there's some key attributes that Special Operations looks for, and continuous growth is one of them, is not resting on your laurels and being able to look at yourself critically and being able to accept critical feedback, feedback from your peer group. So that right there lends itself to create a population to pull from that all have this attribute in them in some form or fashion. You have some people that just go off the rails with it and they're like nonstop. They're learning while they sleep. They're listening to a podcast while they sleep. So all the guys on the team all have that attribute to them. But there's something else also to this group of guys where it was, there was an assessment and selection process for the team also to say, yes, you come from Special Operations background, but does this align with you purposefully? Because it's going to be heinous. It's going to be ridiculously difficult. Doesn't matter how much we train for it. And you better have some purpose behind your motivation to be here. But I have the way that I look at it, you have to have 7 motivators for you to make it through the pipeline, because it gets really, really challenging. Pre-scuba is like the hardest thing that we do. Pre-scuba is the most demanding physical school and mental, psychological school you have to go through. For us in our training pipeline, they drowned you in this course. So if you don't have 7 different motivators, I guarantee one of those days in pre-scuba, whatever your top motivator was, that ain't going to keep you around. That ain't going to send you to the pool to go get drowned. So you have to have multiple levels of motivation. And if you have something purposefully motivating you to do something extremely challenging, then you're going to be able to be successful. But I don't care how strong you are. We have an Olympic rower on our team, a Navy SEAL commander, gold medalist rower. We thank God for this guy also. But even if you're an Olympian, you still could easily fail at this thing if you're not purposefully aligned with it. When it's sideways raining on you and it's freezing out and you're dodging icebergs and there's a freaking orca that's trying to eat you, like you better make sure that you got something purposeful that you're aligned with. So to go back to it, the continuous growth and the accepting challenge is something that I fostered and developed in the special operations community. I had it before. I come from that, but it was fostered and developed in my service. And then I also, after I got out, have been able to look back on some of the most challenging things I've went through, like pre-scuba, and I can recognize the growth that came from that, not just because of getting a scuba bubble on your uniform. Like that's what used to motivate me, is like, I just want all the flair on my uniform. I want to have so many things where somebody sees me like, oh my God, that guy is a freaking ninja. It used to motivate me, but now I recognize the challenge that I accepted to go through that training has translated across the board for every single thing that I'm presented with now in my life. So there's like this attachment. I have this deep attachment to challenge. And again, not just physical. I chose to pursue my MBA after I got out of the military because I knew I'm going to have to become relevant in something else. The spec ops stuff, that was cool and all, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I better learn the private sector. So I pursued my MBA, and I knew nothing about the private sector. So it was like I knew an immersive environment, like immersing myself with business professionals that have been dominating for 30 years in their respective field. I knew that right there is something that I did while I was in the military, and it produces. So go stress yourself out by taking an economics class, right after I got out of the military. So embracing challenge is not just an individual to me, it's within the special operations community. And with this Drake's Passage is now one challenge. There's so many different ways to challenge yourself. I had no background in rowing, zero. So it's like, okay, I know what to do to prepare for a challenge. Don't go into it blind.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, there's so much there to unpack, actually. So let's talk a little bit about going back, that you knew that you had this growth mentality even before you got in the military. So talk just a little bit about that. And then as you went through, it's kind of like stair steps. To me, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Like
you had it, you developed it even more in the military, and now you could just let it go.
Yeah. You
could just like, hey, I've accomplished my goals, but now you still seek challenges. You're seeking growth. You're embarking on this amazing, incredible challenge. Not only is it hard to do in general, but the last group did it in 12 days, and now you're aiming to beat that record, and I'm sure you will.
Right.
And your goal is 10 days.
Right. Yeah.
And you're rowing, if I didn't make that clear. There's no motor here.
There's no motor. We're not attaching our vessel to any dolphins, or we don't have the ability to generate anything, any energy other than with the use of our legs, our back, and our arms. So it will be. We're setting a ambitious goal to break a record from somebody who did it before, and the people that did it before have a way higher pedigree when it comes to rowing. But we have something also. We're bringing something to this that they don't have, and we know that that's relevant in this. So I forgot your question.
Well, going back, I wanted you to go back to pre-military, that growth mindset. What's an example of that?
And I think this is translating not just to the growth mindset. I'm aware of all the habit patterns, and all the key attributes that I have are linked. They're all linked to early childhood exposures, but I have to link it back to individual exposures around my family, and all my family served. So I knew there's something linked there. There's always been this call to serve for all my family, and then exposures to my mom and watching her defy odds and approach challenges with this, not never quit, because that's got like a negative stigma in my eyes now. Quitting is always an option. It's probably a good option sometimes too. But my mom was just the resilience in her. And I think that's where it started. The resilience piece kind of started fueling a lot of these other things too, to say, not only will I make it through it, but I'm going to defy what a lot of expectations are at the same time too. So it's like this, I don't know if like it's just wanting to prove myself all the time. There's probably some of that going on there too. That has all been, it looks different throughout the years, like you're suggesting. It looks a certain way in my early childhood, but now what it looks like in my current form is continuous growth and not resting on your laurels and associating challenge as a positive thing. I believe that's where it comes from. There's a couple different things in, my older brother too. My brother just beat the tar out of me when I was younger, and there's something there too. Like, I'm gonna come back as soon as I get up. I'm coming right back after you again, and then figuring out like, how do I beat him? Like, how do I get stronger than him? So that's turned into a healthy thing at some point for me, and it served me very well.
Are you bigger than your brother now?
Oh yeah, yeah, and we have such a great relationship with the fact that he comes from the Marine Corps and I was in the Air Force. So it's like we're just setting ourselves up to be at each other's throats. Yeah. But it's there's a negative viewpoint on that, but there shouldn't be. Like, even with bullying, like at a certain point, I'm sorry, the real world is going to bully you up a little bit. And it's like, there's this default, approach to, getting punched in the mouth or falling on hard times. And it's like, hold on, that's what makes you who you are. That's what is going to present an opportunity for you to break out of whatever you're being pointed towards or whatever you're supposed to be, because that's how the area you were born in, or that's how you were raised. I don't want to be governed by that. I don't want to have that as my bumpers. So challenge lets you break out of that. And sometimes you got to lean forward and look for the challenge too. Like, don't just wait for it to happen. Like, that's something big for me, is like inviting this stress. It's so much more manageable than the one that's not invited, and growth is coming after that too. So it serves me. And I believe that my team also believes the same thing also.
Yeah, that's one of the realities that's out there, that you really have to be proactive in life. And we were talking beforehand about different hacks you can do, life hacks, just to try and give yourself an edge, whether it's, watching the sunrise in the morning and then stacking goals and so forth. But, you said something about goals and having at least 7, I think you said 7 motivators or reasons.
Yep.
So I want to get to that about like why 7, why is that the magic number? But it gets me thinking a little bit about the reality of setting goals and getting that alignment down, and using what I like to help our clients with is using a Maslow's hierarchy approach, where we go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we'll use the term, what's important about money to you, and they'll provide an answer, and then we'll use that answer, which is kind of level 1, basic food and shelter kind of an answer,
right? Like
never running out, for example,
right?
And then it would be like, well, what's important about never running out?
Right.
And then like, well, because I want to take care of my family. And what's important about taking care of your family? And then we'll have them list those up on stairs, so to speak.
Yeah.
And each answer feeds on the previous one, and it gets them up to like a 3rd level.
Yeah.
If we do it right. And it's a little bit more ethereal. It's like what God called me to do, or it's my higher purpose, or I want to make a transformative impact on the world. Yeah. And that's where the real impact is and the breakthrough. And so that oftentimes that's like 7, 10 value statements or words. And so it resonated with me when you said that.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you just you just connected those things for me personally. And of course, nothing is ever new. Like if you think you've cracked the code and you developed something new, you didn't. This has been thought of before. So yeah, to your point, the 7 is just some arbitrary number. And the reason that I bring it up is if you think that your environment won't present a situation to where you could not plan for it, like you're living in la la land. At some point, you will be rocked. You're going to get hit with something.
You're going to get punched in the mouth.
You're going to get punched in the mouth several times. And I think the battlefield kind of set me up. It presented that. It made it clear as day. Like you can plan for every single contingency. And that's what we usually do is we plan for the mission to go flawless, but then we deliberately plan for contingencies and we think about everything. And I have been on every single mission I've been on, a new contingency popped up. And lessons learned came from that. And then you add that to the list of things to now plan for. So now my 7 motivations, absolutely, I think what you said is exactly it. It's there has to be different reasons that you're doing whatever you're doing, especially if you're going to be presented with some sort of resistance or the environment is going to react in a way to get you off course. So yeah, I wanted to go do cool things in the military because that was what I grew up with. I grew up with watching my heroes, Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator is like one of my favorite movies. And
that's great.
That dude was bad to the bone and he's part of this elite team. So like there's all these different motivators for me just to do something cool and then to prove myself and then to be part of an organization that has notoriety and has achieved some incredible things, and then to serve with the best people, to serve with the most internally motivated, patriotic people. That was a huge motivator for me, but I didn't realize that until the very end. Like that was it. But there's also like a spiritual purpose to it, to achieve something great, and then to be of service. Because again, war and pre-scuba, I watched some of the strongest people. Like these people were physical phenoms. I watched those people scream for their moms, like in the pool, because you are the we call the water the great equalizer. It's gonna find your give up. If you got some give up, it's gonna find it. So if you haven't figured out like, all right, what's gonna keep me in this when that is happening, when I'm getting pummeled, I'm getting drowned, like your hands and feet are tied and you have to go do some drill in the deep end. If you don't have something that's keeping you there, that's the next level, you're raising your hand. Then they're looking for that. They're purposely looking for that give up in you, in Darren. They know Darren's a phenom. He was part of the water polo team, and there's nothing that they could do to you in that water that's going to stress you out. They're going to figure it out. And it might be on land that they do it. But that's the attributes that I'm talking about, is they're looking for your give up. And when they find it, they're going to press you. And then they want to see what you do. That's the key attribute. It's not necessarily how big you are. I'm not a big dude, but I also don't give up. And if I get knocked down, I'm going to get back up again. They would rather see that than the person that's like 7 foot tall, 400 pounds, jack steel monster who could keep a tight shot group. Like they want to see the guy that they can find his give up. And then what does he do after that? Does he still perform for his team? Is he still trusting? Can you still trust him? Does he, what is at your lowest point? What does your behavior look like? And that it's not about being, scuba qualified. It's not about getting through dive school. It's about, to me, that's what it is. So it's, if you don't have all those things prepared to access, to dig into, to be like, okay, it's getting really hard, but now this is the reason that I'm here, then you're going to throw in the towel, and the environment wins and adversity wins. And you're stuck in that that path that you were destined to be in. You're stuck in there now. So I think that it's interesting to hear your perspective on it. You're absolutely right. What a beautiful thing you could do for your audience to walk somebody through that, because you really get them to start living at that point. If you can get somebody to be not so attached to compensation, like compensation is very important, but it is not your priority. I guarantee it. There's something else there. So it might be your faith. It might be your purpose. It might be your environment. It might be geographical. There are so many things that are so much more important than whatever this arbitrary number is, but it might be really important for you to build generational wealth. And if you tease that out of somebody, then it makes it so much clearer to them. Well, I don't have to stay focused on this one project or this one client or this one even profession. If you're trying to build generational wealth and you're not so hyper concerned about 7 figures in 2 years, then let me help you do that. Let's start looking at 30 years from now. I will help you build generational wealth. It's going to be a little challenging during these next 2 years or 5 years. So if you can provide that to somebody, that is huge. You're changing people's lives and potentially their families' lives, generations down the road.
Yeah, it is interesting. Goals are dynamic, and so when people talk about goals originally surface level, it's oftentimes what you might think of: taking care of my kids' education, having enough money one day so if I choose to not work or can't work anymore, that I can have some money to live on, maybe a second home, vacations, travel. And then if they really start taking time and thinking about their why and their reasonings and get proper alignment, and the term I use is financial flow. It's like getting into the zone, right?
Yeah.
You get into flow where that there's creativity follows flow. So you get in alignment, with your values, your goals, and all of a sudden the prefrontal cortex shuts down or slows down, and you start thinking creatively versus analytically. And there may be things that pop up that are financial goals, but they also then all of a sudden open up doors and opportunities to do other things.
Yeah.
And it may end up being service. Like service comes to mind. Again, you mentioned it a number of times, but a lot of times people have that inside of them, but they may not even be thinking about it.
Yeah.
So they may be thinking, God, I want to go to Africa one day. But then when they start maybe putting their values in line with their goals, like, wait a minute, I have a calling to serve others and help others or coach others. And maybe that's spending time in Africa, and you don't have to leave the United States. You can go anywhere downtown Phoenix and serve and help others.
Yeah.
And but in terms of like a travel goal, I want to go to Africa, but I'm going to do it to serve others with my community program or my church or something like that.
Yeah.
It kind of starts all coming together, and then from that comes purpose, and then there comes happiness.
Yeah.
I
believe that. I totally believe they're all linked. It's all linked, and if you do the work to scrape a little bit lower, there's always an ability to scrape a little bit lower. It'll present itself. But some people live their whole lives not even realizing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally true. So let's get back to a little bit about your service, and thank you for serving.
You're welcome.
I can't remember if I told you, but my youngest son just joined the Navy.
You did tell me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's at boot camp right now.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah. So they call it P week, process week. Well, he's now in week 1. So I guess it's now officially begun, but head shave, the whole 9 yards. And we haven't heard from him.
You got to give me his address to mail him a letter. This is very important when somebody's going through basic training. You have to get him a little bit of negative attention while he's going through. It's good for him. You write a letter and you write something about the Navy. The Navy is the worst branch or something to get him some negative attention when the instructors are when the drill instructors are handing out mail and they see this thing. My brother did that to me, and it's good for him. It's character building. They're going to be like, oh, okay, you got a letter and it says something. You want to explain? You got to give me. I would love to be able to provide that to him.
I will. I'm going to help you with that. Thank you for helping me.
Yeah.
So Eric did. You just retired recently, really, in 2020.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. So 20 years of service, special operations veteran, supporting combat operations. You were serving 10 counterterrorism tours, including 3 Afghanistan, 3 Iraq, 3 East Africa, and your last combat tour was in 2017 when you and a team of 11 Americans fought to free the Syrian people from the grips of the violent ISIS organization. Man, that was some gnarly shit that you did. Really impressive. Thank you. I mean, I can't, so many of us just can't say enough to thank you for you guys going out there and doing what you do.
We enjoyed it, and you're welcome. We enjoyed what we did, and I'll tell you, it didn't matter where it could have been in the Bahamas. It could have been, it doesn't matter where the deployment is. Just to go out there with the people that I was out there with, that was the best part, was just being with a group of people aligned towards something and to be able to do your job as well. That's like, you train really hard to do your job. You want to be able to see if you're any good at it. So in short, I really enjoyed what I did, but I also checked the block at the same time. Like, I don't need to do anything like this anymore. Like, I'm done with that. So going overseas and doing that, I still have friends that continue to do it, and I encourage them to look elsewhere for another way of, being compensated or earning a living. But it was, I enjoyed the 20 years, and it was a busy time for us. We had constant.
I mean, it had to be one of the busiest continual stretches of the U.S. military ever in our history as a country.
It was nonstop. And there was, at some point, there was almost like this reactionary, cyclical pattern where leaders thought that it needed to be 100% deployment rate. So it's like, okay, that's where I started looking at it. The latter part of my career, I was like, oh, this doesn't end. And that helped me make that decision to say at 20, I'm going to walk away from this, because it's not going to end. The next leader that comes in, unfortunately, is also trying to be as successful, if not more successful, than the other guy. So it's like, I don't know if we ever succeed in this capacity. And if I stay here, then I and my family continue to suffer. And I'm very aware of that now. The families are the ones that are left, like, picking up the pieces in the end. So it's like, I don't think you keep on doing that to your family, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for everything you've done, and
you're welcome.
It's amazing. So tell us, as you reflect back on your military career, how important is it to have a team, goals, process, leadership, support, mission, motivation, all of those things? Because we talk to people that are NFL coaches. We had Allison Schmidt on, who's an Olympic athlete, CEOs of corporations, and there's a parallel to a lot of that. Allison Schmidt said it was all about support. Marv Lewis, very similar support. And then in the work we do for people and helping them get their financial houses in order, and the work we do, there's leadership, there's organization, we have processes, clients have their goals, alignment, motivation, there's a mission. Yep. So with the military, how important is it to have those things?
It's critical from the point of view of, you can be able to do something incredible once. Like, you can have somebody who's very talented and can do something incredible once, but that's not what we're in the business of doing. We're in the business of doing it consistently and keeping a presence over there and keeping things in some sort of predictable outcome. We're looking for a predictable outcome, which you need consistency there in order to be able to produce that. So you need something to support you, to support the longevity of it. If you don't have, for us, if we didn't have the support, if we didn't have, everything, all the enablement pieces, then we'd only be able to produce this thing once. And then it would take us forever to come back together, refit, and get ready to do it again. So I realize that now and it gets said a lot, the support is the thing that keeps this machine moving. If you don't have that, you have no consistency whatsoever. And I'm realizing that even with Drake's Fury, the team of support that we have is the only reason that we're going to be able to do anything even remotely incredible. Is we have to have a bunch of smart people looking at this, backing us up, helping prepare us, and then supporting us throughout the expedition too. We have to have a support vessel for recovery just in case something happens. There has to be a support vessel there that's capable of recovery and then higher care, having some sort of triage capability on there. So without a doubt, in the military, you need it. You need the backside support, because once something happens, there needs to be either a follow-on force or a quick reactionary force, or there needs to be something available to back you up. Because every single time, leave it to the enemy to make things harder for us. They're always weird. They're always throwing a wrench in our plan. So it's critical. I'm aware in the military, and I'm definitely aware in this new phase that I'm in, that you can have the best organization with the best talented people, but unless you have the support system there to back them up, they're only going to be able to produce X for a certain amount of time before now they don't have the energy, they don't have the administrative functions, they don't have the development even like to keep them motivated. There's so many things that are feeding into them performing X for you, and it's not sustainable if you don't have something robust there to back them up.
And you have that also in the Drake's Passage crew. So you have 6 badasses doing this. You've got a goal. You want to do this in under 10 days.
Yep.
You have your team of 6 badasses. You've got a process that you're working right now with EXO and North Scottsdale.
Right. That's one of them. And then we also have other programming, strength and conditioning programming through Power Athlete. So there's this protocol that we're following to both build ourselves up physically, so build the strength, but at the same time addressing the endocrine system also. So stress loads and trying to manage that both during and after, before, during, and after. So there's some emphasis on your sleep hygiene is one of them that we've brought up several times. Sleep hygiene before we execute this thing, because the more that you could build that sleep bank, the more that you can build up this healthy sleep pattern is going to set you up for the best possible start point, because right from that start point, it's all downhill from there. There's our recovery cycle is going to be cut down to potentially 60 minutes. So we have 90 minutes on of rowing, 90 minutes off of rowing. And in order to eat, use a bathroom, you put some powder on your feet, whatever, you essentially only get 60 minutes of sleep. So we're not going to hit full sleep cycles. We're not going to fully recover. And to have a team of experts looking at that is absolutely incredible. It's so cool.
Totally.
I as soon as I saw the support that was coming along with this, I was like, without a doubt, this reminds me of the good old days of having the world's best support, the support system that we had while we were in. It would blow your mind. The every possible contingency, having something in place, not even conceptually, not even just saying, hey, we've thought about this problem that could happen. No, they thought about it and they put something in place to react within a critical window. They call it the golden hour. You have an hour, typically, if somebody gets injured, you got an hour. So putting things in place for when the contingency happens, and not like having to say, okay, now let's start making phone calls. That level of support was like one of the coolest things that I had an opportunity of taking advantage of while I was doing all those deployments. I had the world's best support backing me up. And I'll tell you that can help you make the decision to run through fire or whatever crazy thing people end up doing. And I've seen amazing things people do. You can do that knowing like you got some amazing support enabling
I love
you.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, that's certainly going to help you guys with your confidence in what you're going to be doing in Drake's Passage, because you've actually experienced that.
Yep.
You know what that feels like. And then, as they all do, because they've all been in special ops.
Yep.
And so they're all going to have that. And even the Olympian was a special operator as well. So he's double support experience. That totally makes sense to me. I like to talk to people about, it's like getting a double black belt in karate. So like if you were to walk down the street in a bad city in a bad part of town, and there's a couple of, dudes walking on the other side of the street and they look like they're up for trouble, you're going to be a little nervous or maybe very nervous. But if you're a double or triple black belt, you still may be nervous, but you have a lot more confidence. You can handle the situation that may present itself to you. And that's what you're talking about. That's what I like to talk about, when the importance of getting your financial house in perfect order and keeping it that way, because it's like working out. You just don't go and get it set up and it stays that way. You got to have a support team that's anticipating keeping it there, and all be thinking about contingencies that come up down the road. Shit happens. So it's like, do you want to be part of the financially successful that has their financial house in perfect order, or part of the financially successful that don't? Because there are consequences to not having your shit together. So like you said, the guys that were attempting to join, the elite club and the special operators in the Air Force with you and pre-scuba, they may be able to have a nice tight grouping, or they may be just, steel athlete and a total badass, but they maybe didn't have the full picture. Right. And you got to have everything in place.
I like that. Well done with that analogy too, to draw those parallels. You're absolutely right. Even if, you're not financially or compensation or monetarily driven, it's still a very big variable for you. So you can react to the contingencies, because they will happen. Your house might explode. Your car could break down. Does that cripple you? So I love the analogy, the way that you draw those parallels. It's brilliantly said to have somebody prepare, to have support in place for those contingencies, translates across the board. Hands down, it does. And we know, we've seen it so many times in special operations, and now I'm witnessing the perils once I get out. You see the stories that happen, all the stories that happen that have movies about them, or there's notoriety. If people aren't aware, that's just a shitty ass situation that people did not prepare for. And I know that might rub people the wrong way. That might make people, that's really rude. You're taking away. I'm just telling people what the truth, the cold hard truth is. If there's been a movie made about it, generally speaking, there were some people that went into a situation that they should not have gone into, or they should have went into with a double black belt. Like, that's what it ends up being. So now I'm aware that that's no different than any other situation that we're getting ourselves into potentially now with Drake's Fury. We don't have none of us should be out there rowing in the world's most dangerous waters. But that being said, it's not about rowing. There's something bigger than that. And if we're going to do something like that, then you better have some great support, and you better start preparing yourself physically, mentally, even spiritually to do something like that. You don't just go into it and say, yeah, I'm a pretty tough guy. I got some grit. I got resiliency. No, we're smarter than that. So to go back to it, the support and the preparing for contingencies. We'll bring a spear gun with us just in case, so we can start spearing some fish, just in case we run out of food.
See, I mean, that is so powerful, though, what you're saying. I mean, it does translate to so many different things in life. Just being prepared, having those contingencies, in finance, it's insurance and savings and all those type of trusts and all that type of thing. with what you're doing, all these things you're doing on the preparation side, getting your body ready, the sleep protocol you're going to put yourselves through. And frankly, shit will happen on this trip. And
Right.
some of it's out of your control.
Right.
And, I just have in my heart that you guys are going to be successful and achieve your goal. But, it may not happen. There may be a disaster out of your control, and you guys can reassess, do it again, or you fight through it, however it happens. But that's all you can control is what you can control.
Right.
And you're doing everything in your possible. And it's got to feel good to be surrounded by professionals and that support and the team and everybody thinking like that.
Yeah, it does feel good knowing that to look to the right and to the left, and that was the most favorite thing that during my service. After I left the service, when I really started looking at it, I'm like, as I was looking for purpose after the service, like, what did I really enjoy? What's the thing? What is the thing that's worth digging into and looking for a way to apply it in this next chapter? And it took a ton of reflecting to finally identify that it was culturally driven. Like, the culture piece was the most important piece. That's what made me the happiest, is working with a group of people that's just wired a little bit differently. They're not better. I would never say that anybody in special operations is better. They're not. They're different. They are wired different. They have different motivations. But that was the thing that I really take with me at the end of the day. And it's something worth paying attention to for the next chapter. So having something culturally appropriate for me and having a team that's culturally appropriate for me. They don't have to be a bunch of commandos, but the culture piece is bigger than the compensation is, or bigger than the actual job that I'm doing, the physical job. So that's something I'm very grateful for, to have been able to draw out and not necessarily drop in GPS guided bombs on dickheads from, all over every single bad guy on the planet. It ain't that. That has nothing to do with it. It was looking to the right and the left, or not even having to look, just knowing they're to the right and the left of me, doing the thing that we're all aimed at, the purpose. That's the really big piece for me. That's the big priority. Purpose is before that. If I'm not aimed at something that I care about or I want, then it doesn't matter. The team has to be a great team, but if I have to stack it in priority, that's what it is. It's the team. And the guys that I'm with, I didn't know any of them. Like, I met them for the first time 4 months ago in Austin, and like, I love those guys. After day one, it's like, it's obvious these guys are wired that way, and they are the best people, the coolest people.
Awesome. When you talk about that purpose, I mean, it's an obvious that you guys have done this, but tell me about getting together and learning about what everyone's why is.
Yeah.
You've got some whys. What did everybody break that down? Did you go through like a exercise where everybody goes through the reason they want to do this?
Oh yeah.
And you guys go deep on that?
Oh yeah, it's funny you bring that up. Yeah, that was that we leveraged psychological support for that as well. So we leveraged the Mount Sinai performance team. That they're the team that gets the Red Bull athletes ready for whatever extraordinary things they're going to do. So we're leveraging this team of clinicians, experts, and the psychological support helped us go through these drills like you're suggesting, to say, okay, let's get everybody on purposeful alignment here. What are your priorities? What do you consider the key metric? Name 3 of them. What are the 3 things that are most important to all of you? And just that function right there, forcing us through the storming, norming, performing of team building, that was just one of the ways to like help the team get in alignment. Was so cool. Like, that reminded me again of being part of the organization I was part of, is having a group of experts help you get in alignment and get everybody on the same page. You might not have walked into it knowing that this is what you really prioritize. We prioritize trust, like being able to trust each other. We prioritize it being fun. We prioritize love. Like, there are things that are important for us that we put a name on it. We had an exercise. We were joking around about it. That was one particular exercise to help us identify everybody's why, but everybody has also a different why in the fact that some people are doing this for a purpose that is external to them. Some people are doing it for something that's internal to them. They're not the same. We have different, like, real deep rooted drivers, and who do we want to dedicate it to also? That's another big piece of this. Part of our internal purposely driven why is dedicating it to an individual and naming that individual to force you to look external, to say, okay, and this is a way higher cause than anything that you can see or you can touch, but it's tangible. And for me, that guides me. I believe that being focused on an individual or individuals that are no longer with us guides me. And then it also provides, like, I know that they're presenting things. They present things in my path to say, hey, I'm going to drop this right in front of you. So that's very important for each of us individually. Everybody's dedicated this to an individual that they care about that's no longer with us. Some people fell on the battlefield. Some people fell because of injuries sustained on the battlefield that they succumbed to after they left. So it's very important that we identify that, because that's the bigger purpose for all of this, is to hopefully, when somebody sees it or somebody hears, somebody listens to the podcast, I hope that somebody realizes that, oh, these people have gone through something, or they're going through something that's similar to what I'm going through. And what they just suggested is a potential path out of it. Like, we're trying to provide, to me, it's an attempt to provide GPS directions
out of something that they could be dealing with and they don't have the answer to.
So you said, appreciate all that. You said something about, I lost my train of thought. Well, let's go. We're talking about the team, and then we're talking about obviously having that big why, the big why of
right.
Something that you guys have each lost, and having that out there. I mean, that's got to be a huge motivator. And like, when the times get tough out there, being able to have those other 7 reasons, but then be thinking about someone that you've dedicated this mission towards, right? It's got to make a big impact.
I think it's the final piece that really will get you to keep on going at some point. Everybody individually has theirs. They might not know what it is. You'll find it whenever the real like right hook, the perfect shot on the chin, when that thing delivers, if you don't know what it is already, you'll probably find it because of that. And if you don't, then that's probably the end for you. That's what takes you out of the fight. So I believe that thing holds the power, like the real power to prevail. And it's individual. Everybody has to have it. And it has to be, to me, it has to be something spiritual. So it's got to be, to me, it's got to be more than just like your health or your family, or it's got to be spiritual. And I don't necessarily believe it has to be God. Your spirituality can be something other than God. But look, take it from all the other examples and the people before me. God has presented the solution to every single possible challenge that anybody's gone through. So I believe that our spiritual why or our spiritual motivation is the thing that governs us all. And the sooner you find that out, the better off you're going to be whenever, again, you're dealing with the most challenging situation that you are going to be faced with. And I know the veteran population and even the first responder population I'm an advocate for them. I know that a lot, the ones that don't realize that end up living this life that is not their authentic selves. And then at the end of their lives, they're stuck with all these demons and all these regrets. And it's like, I'm trying to message to those guys. I want those guys to know that there is a benefit to you accepting challenge. There is a benefit to you accepting help. There is a benefit to you addressing your spiritual and mental and physical health. There is that is just as relevant, if not more relevant, than your attachment to being the person who saves the day, or somebody who absorbs problems and never creates problems. So it's we don't want to inspire, but we want to message to those people that need to hear. Like, we want to do something really cool and shiny and have the attention behind it. But there's a reason for it, and that's to deliver this message. There's a couple things also that we're doing. We're raising funds for Folds of Honor too.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about that organization and the reason you picked that organization and what they do for everybody.
Right. Folds of Honor is a nonprofit that we're supporting, and we're using Drake's Fury as a fundraising effort for them. So Folds of Honor is a nonprofit that provides education services to the children of the fallen. So call them Gold Star families. And it's not just education, it's also unique experiences. It's doing something that we know that those that fell on the battlefield wanted to do for them, or they want something for them. So and that's where Legacy Expeditions comes in. Is Legacy Expeditions does some really cool stuff, but it's in the name. It's about the legacy, and part of the ethos, the warrior ethos, and the special operations community, remembering our friends, remembering those that fell, that is really important to us. So one way that we can remember them, one way that we can continue their legacy is by caring for their family, is by doing something special for their family. And Folds of Honor does that really well. So knowing that there's a great cause behind it too, raising funds for an organization that's doing the Lord's work. They're caring for those that, if I fell on the battlefield, I would love to know that there's somebody out there doing some incredible things like that for the family members. So this is the second fundraiser that we're going to host for them. The first one was the 777 skydiving event. That was 7 skydives in 7 continents in 7 days.
Oh, you told me about that. That's incredible.
Yeah, and my buddy pulled that off, and it was not easy. It looks really cool, and what you guys see is cool, but that guy had to break his back to make that work. And you want to talk about contingencies. That guy was hit with every possible contingency to not let him into the next country, or not let him lift off the aircraft to do the jump. So it's doing really cool things that are getting attention. We hope people are entertained by it, but we hope that they recognize something, a message that speaks to them in their own internal fight that they're dealing with. And I guarantee their fight doesn't look like mine, but who cares? Like, comparison is the thief of joy. Like, what my experiences are and what I went through doesn't matter. We each are dealing with our own stuff, and it's significant in each of our lives. So not so focused on military, our experiences. You wouldn't get it. You wouldn't understand what we're going through. Everybody's going through their own individual struggles, and everybody could benefit from taking the approach that we're trying to do and calling it out and doing something about it.
Yeah, well, it's incredible. I mean, really, thank you so much for your service, for coming by today and sharing what you're doing. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about how people can track you and get involved, follow you and your training. So where's the best place for people to check that out?
So there's 2 different places that they could go to. One of them is the website. So Legacy Expeditions is the website to learn more about Drake's Fury and some of the other unique ways that we're getting out there and we're challenging ourselves and we're creating these experiences. They could follow us there. That's where a lot of it will be captured. And then if you'd like to support us on this event to help us pull off this ridiculously challenging event, they can go to the Gift Smart page that we have attached to the link as well. And we need the sponsorship. We need the support to pull it off. And at some point after all this is done, they'll get a chance to enjoy the content piece that'll be produced to tell the really cool story of each of the six of us. So they'll be able to follow the story of all of us individually and just some of the things that we talked about today. So yeah, Legacy Expeditions, follow us on social media or go to the website to learn more.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Well, I'm going to be donating. I'm going to be spreading the word to all my friends and family and all of you listening. Hopefully you check it out. And I'm going to also include the links to everything within the podcast. So you could click on the links and open the links and the PDFs and all the good stuff. So we'll get that from you. So thank you again for coming. Super fun, informative, inspiring.
I learned a lot. I learned a ton. I appreciated your perspective on it, that how it translates to your group of people. Thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, right on. I know we learned a ton too. So thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it. Check us out on wherever you listen to podcasts or watch, because there is video as well. So Apple, Amazon, Spotify, check it out. Thank you for listening. Make it a great day. This was the Financial Flow Podcast with me, Darren Wright. Thank you for listening, and I hope that today you were inspired and informed to move even more into your peak financial flow for success.